Hiya Hinsters, welcome back to the channel, and if you're new, welcome too. Do give this video a thumbs up if you like what I do, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. My name is Hinny, I am a spiritual astrologer, and you can check out the description box below for details on how to get in touch with me if you'd like a reading or some such. And today's video is on Pluto in Aquarius. As you may know, Pluto has recently entered the fixed air sign Aquarius and is at the 0 degree. And this video is on that transit, which is roughly 20 years. Yes, there will be a dipping back into the sign of Capricorn, but more or less, give or take, Pluto will be in the sign of Aquarius now for about 20 years. Obviously, Pluto is a very slow-moving planet, and not everyone will feel Plutonian things in their Aquarius house immediately or overnight. Some other disclaimers. Please look at your birth chart, find Aquarius. So the zodiacal sign for Aquarius is like two wavy lines. That's where you have Aquarius in your birth chart, and that therefore is the house where you have Pluto. Now, I do Hellenistic or traditional astrology, so I will only be referring to one house. There is only one house where you have Aquarius in this system. I would also say let's pay attention to Saturn in Pisces, because Saturn is the ruler of Aquarius, again, traditional astrology, and Saturn's in Pisces. So Saturn is hosting Pluto at the beginning of this transit, and hence helps set the tone of this Plutonian transit. So look also therefore to your Pisces house. Now I'm making this video for the rising or the ascendant signs, and of course this is just my take on the transit. Obviously 20 years is very long, and as ever, Pluto being in your Aquarius house, like any transit or anything we talk about in astrology, does not absolutely mean that you will experience every single theme that that house contains. It might only be one theme for you, and it might not be, as I said earlier, overnight. Don't force it. Finally, I have a video already on Pluto and Pluto through the houses in the birth chart, so do give that a wee look-see, because I go into more detail there on Pluto as a god. But here today, very briefly, Pluto is a god of abundance. And also, did you know, things like gems, like precious metals, precious resources, and fulfillment of contracts. I'm going to talk a lot about contracts in this video, and promises, and things like surveillance, and the toxic, and the poisonous, and more. Check out my Pluto video for more. Okay, so starting off with Aquarius Rising, Aquarius. So this 20-year period is Pluto putting to the test contracts you make with yourself for your personality, your health, your outlook on life, your aura, and your very spirit. And Saturn in your second house is like, what are you going to do now that you've earned what you've earned, or now that you've got what you got? Nicki Minaj is Aquarius Rising. Pisces, that this 20-year period for you is Pluto putting to the test the contracts you make unbeknownst to yourself. This is your blind spots. This is the sincerity of the spirituality that you have or don't have, or the solace. This is stuff like the hidden parts of yourself. This is bad spirit. This is the unknown. This is curses. This is Saturn also in your first house. By the way, Saturn has his joy in the 12th house. Saturn's in your first house now, but hosting this Pluto in the 12th house thing for you. And so Saturn in your first house then is like, what are you going to do now that you've made it somehow, or you're made now to focus on yourself? So there could be something very originative or cultivated that you have reaped or are starting to reap right now, Pisces Rising, as Saturn is in your first house. But you could otherwise be made to focus on yourself, your health, your spirit. Aries, this 20-year period is Pluto putting to the test the contracts you make with friends. This is allies, contacts. This is all the people who put you in the right place or connect you in the right ways. This is your aspirations. This is the good spirited stuff. So as I said at the very beginning, Pluto rules abundance. And so there could be an abundance of these things like friends or just good spirited stuff. And Saturn in your 12th house then is like, what are you going to do now that you have a lot of good? Are you going to lose it again? Some people will. Or how are you dealing with the prospect of loss as well? Taurus then, this 20-year period is Pluto putting to the test the contracts you make and the actions you've got to take. And this is like your career development. This is the men, quote unquote, in your family. This is your calling. This is how you want to be reputed or seen, Taurus. Saturn in your 11th house is like, what are you going to do now that you've got to take bigger actions? Like, are you going to take seriously also the good contacts and opportunities that you have to make things actually happen? So again, getting this vision for you of like getting things rolling now, Taurus. Gemini, this 20-year period is Pluto putting to the test the contracts you make with your higher education, your masculine divinities. This is faith, this is teachers, this is trials or travel or journeys of purpose. This is your space or your place of spiritual or religious commitment. Saturn in your 10th house is like, what are you going to do with all this hope and these big questions? And do you also need to overhaul anything? And is faith or religion, for example, for some people, faith, religion, optimism, is this helping you with this overhaul? Are you going to be able to make use of it for this overhaul? Cancer, this 20-year period is Pluto putting to the test the contracts that you make with other people. This is debts, yes, this is promises, this is things coming back to you, maybe tenfold or 100-fold. This is also overcoming fears. So what contracts have you made with yourself, or are you going to make with yourself to overcome a fear or two during this 20-year period? This is eradicating idleness. This is eliminating also that which needs to go, because yes, the 8th house is one of the houses of death. And Saturn in your 9th house is like, what are you going to do now that bonds with people or things are getting serious somehow? You know, can you commit and fulfill? Can you till soil properly? Can you cultivate? This is Saturn really speaking through to Pluto, I feel. Leo, then, this 20-year period is Pluto putting to the test the contracts you make with other people. This is partners, yes, this is enemies, this is your evening routine, did you know as well? This is, or like your evening ways of life. This is to negotiate as well with other people, reconciliate, and also to resolve things. And Saturn in your 8th house, Leo, is like, what are you going to do now that you're seeing the deeper aspects of people and the more serious sides of your contracts and the baggage of other people? What are you going to do now that you're in touch with that? Virgo, the 20-year period for you then is Pluto putting to the test the contracts that you make with those that you might hire or ask for services. And your health as well comes into this house. And also this is stuff like relieving your suffering, to combat as well your bad fortune. What kind of contracts or promises have you made, Virgo, to get rid of the bad fortune in your life? It might not be very much. If you're a typical Virgo rising, you'd be very good at snipping away. But maybe not. And this could be a good 2 decades to really get rid of, really shift some bad fortune. And also this is stuff like working on your career and your calling, Virgo, because the 6th house makes this trine to the 10th house. And This is also stuff like being a better conductor in some sense and being in command. Now, I do see a lot of Virgo risings really, if they're not already, if they haven't ever done this before, beginning an era of management or bossing. And it can be great for a lot of you. Now, Saturn in your 7th house, Virgo, is like, what are you going to do now that you may need to, for example, help your partner or other people, even when your own situation may be more difficult or maybe as difficult, or you're having to deal with things on your own plate in terms of health or suffering or bad fortune. Like, what are you going to do about and with these other people, these partners? Libra, then, this 20-year period is Pluto putting to the test the contracts that you make with your kids. This is stuff like having kids. This is stuff like your pets. This is plants. This is your creative projects. This is risks and gambling. And this is having more fun. This is pleasure for the self. This is going out and risking it for things like love and romance and dating. And Saturn in your 6th house is like, what are you going to do now that something may rain on your parade or overshadow a good time? Or in some cases, for some people, there might be some kind of threat to something 5th house, like the kids or pets. And I don't want to be like ominous, but like for some people, this will be the case, of course. Saturn speaking through, and Pluto here as well. Anyway, what are we going to do about these kind of overshadow potentials? Now, Scorpio, this 20-year period is Pluto putting to the test the contracts that you make with the quote-unquote women in your family. This is stuff like your house and your home and your literal foundations. This is like your past, your memories. This is your secrets. This is your rootedness. And Saturn in your 5th house is like, what are you going to do now that love or romance or joy is knocking on your door? I like that a lot for you. Now, Sagittarius, this 20-year period is for you. Pluto putting to test the contracts that you make with your friends, with siblings, with neighbors, and those around you, and your community, and feminine divinities, and your communication, and your localities, like physical and digital. And this is your hobbies, this is interests, and all the things that stimulate you somehow. And Saturn in the 4th house for you is like, what are you going to do now that something or someone is bringing you to a sense of home, or rootedness, or maybe like a kind of interesting sense of mystery? Maybe, you know, I can see some Sagittarius risings going on a very unexpected, even for the Sag rising, a very unexpected, surprising kind of journey. Maybe a lot of Sagittarius risings are actually going back to their past for the next couple of decades in some great sense. Capricorn, this 20-year period is Pluto putting to the test the contracts you make with your spending habits. This is your investments. This is your diet. This is your physical possessions. Anything you can like pick up and move and throw, that's yours. And this is your nutrition as well. And this is the effort or the energies that you put into things. It's the alchemy that you have. It is the magic. You work with what you have to work with. And this is stuff like people or situations also that you put energy and effort towards. Now, Saturn in your 3rd house is there like, what are you going to do now that you're focusing more on how you want to relate and connect and converse with people and places and spaces around you? And like, what will the cost of that be? And now I think some people will go overboard with this. But also, on the other hand, I think a lot of Capricorn risings will really be cleansing and reassessing what they put into who and where. And it can be like a very transformational to a decade period for Capricorn rising. That's all I've got for you, my loves. Have a great Monday Moon Day. I'm recording this on Monday Moon Day, and I'll see you in the next one. Leave me a comment. Tell me where you have Aquarius in your birth chart, and if you are already experiencing something to do with this Pluto in Aquarius transit. Love you very much. Take care. All the best. Bye-bye.